Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. Today, I'm joined by Sahiounie. He is a well-known journalist in Syria. He is 2 times award-winning journalist and political commentator, and also he's the chief editor of Mideast Discourse. I'm going to put all his links, guys, in the description below, his Twitter account and also his website and his last article, which he titled U.S. Sanctions Are Drowning Syrians. Today, we're going to speak about a few topics and few developments that already happened in Syria. And I'm sure the audience of Syrian Analysis appreciate your insight. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me on Syrian Analysis. Actually, to begin with, we have seen footage coming from the Syrian-occupied Golan Heights, where we see Israeli occupation forces are clashing with Syrians living under occupation. What's the nature of these clashes? Why are there clashes in the occupied Golan Heights? And what's the plan of the Israeli occupation forces that the Syrians there are refusing and rejecting?
Since day one of the Golan Heights being occupied in 1970, since the 73 war, the Israeli regime and the Israeli government occupation has been trying and working and planning day by day on eliminating and erasing the real and true identity of the Golan Heights, the people of the Golan Heights, the Syrians in the Golan, but the Golanis and the Golan Heights people are refusing all of these projects. Today, they are saying they are building turbinos for electricity, but in reality, that's much bigger. Yesterday, it was about some elections. The time before that, every time they are trying to go into the society of the Golan, of the people of the Golan, and they're trying to make them and force them to forget that they have been failing all of these years. The Golan people, they want to go back to Syria, and that is why they're refusing everything that the Israeli occupation has been doing. And today we are seeing them standing up in the face of the occupation, just like how we are seeing recently the people, the young men of Jenin and Nablus and occupied Jerusalem, how they are standing in the face of the Israeli occupation. So this, the region, and especially the Golan people and all of the occupied, we've seen it either several days ago. The people of Shab'a Farms also stood in the face of the occupation. The people of this area are tired from the apartheid Israel. They are tired from their actions, and especially they are tired from the international community and the United Nations from not doing anything and not stopping the Israeli occupation in what they are doing to the people, if it's the people of Golan or West Bank or Gaza or Lebanon or any occupied land in the region.
Stephen, today I was watching a video on Twitter, and there was a guy, he's an Arabic-speaking person. We do not know his full background, but he's speaking about the Golan Heights, and he says, do you really think that the Golan Heights are occupied? Let me remind you that the people living, or the Syrians living in the Golan Heights, they have a higher living standards than in Syria. They have a better education system than in Syria. They have a better work opportunities than in Syria. They have higher salaries than in Syria. And he's comparing, the conditions of the people living there with Syria. And he says, how can this be considered an occupation when the people there have a better life standards? What do you reply as a Syrian to a person who says something like this?
The only reply is it's not him not him or anyone in the world. It's not their decision, and it's not their and their opinion means nothing. The people who takes the decision of the Golan is the Golan people, and the Syrian people, they are Syrians, and the Syrian people, they're the one who will take that decision. It is true. Now the lifestyle over there, yes, it might be better, but the lifestyle in Syria was much better than it is today. But because of this Western war on Syria, we are going through economical situation, and we went through over 10 years of war. But if it's the Golan or if it's Iskenderun or any occupied land, if it's Shab'a farms or the occupied Palestinian land like Jerusalem, the people of that land, they're the one who takes the decision. And we have seen, if the people of the Golan Heights did not want to come back to Syria and kick out the occupation, they could have and did protest and went on strike. And we have been seeing what they've been doing in the last few days. And that's the biggest reply to him and everyone who thinks that people, they are Syrians and they belong to Syria and they want to go back to Syria. They want to be liberated from the occupation.
Actually, there is also still, if we want to believe that there is international law, and the UN resolutions all say that the Golan Heights belong to Syria. And if increasing the livelihood or life standards of people was a measurement to who belongs this territory, we can definitely say that if somebody is married to a woman and he has a wife, and another man comes and provides a better life standards to his wife, does it really mean that you can abandon your wife to other person? I don't understand what kind of a logic these people have. And speaking of liberation, and because Syria has now the Golan Heights occupied by Israel, we have the east occupied by the United States, we have some of the northern parts and Idlib occupied by Turkey, and now we see a huge military reinforcement, I would say the first of its sort since 2018, since the acts of hostilities, let's say, were a little bit cooled down. And now we see huge reinforcement from the Syrian army side are heading toward the north. So where are these units are going, and what's the mission? Are they going to liberate some territories, and where is it?
According to the information on the ground, it's saying that these reinforcements are going to the North Syria, to Aleppo, and to Idlib. They want to liberate. Some news agencies are saying that they're going to the east of Aleppo, but that is not correct. They are going to Aleppo and Idlib. Everyone is being prepared and being prepared for a military operation. The talk is, I'm saying not information from sources, but what the people are saying and feeling and analyzing the footage that we all saw on social media, and that is the reinforcements. It looks like we are at a turning point. It was the Astana meeting, and it looks like the Astana meeting today, it was a complete failure. No new progress in the Turkish relationship. So we might be seeing a hot summer, as they say, in that region. We might be seeing the Syrian and their allies, Russia and Iran and other countries who back up Syrian Arab army, doing, especially the Russians, doing a military operation to clear and free the M4 and the whole region, and protecting the Aleppo from the suburbs. Because we all seen that the Jabhat al-Nusra, or so-called, the Americans changed their name, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they threatened to do a military operation on Aleppo. So even though that on paper they have no power to do anything to Aleppo, but everyone has to be, but they have to send reinforcement to protect it. No one knows, because in the end they're being backed up by the United States, and we all know what the United States is able to do.
Do you really believe, as a Syrian, that Turkey under Erdogan will one day just give up on the territories that Turkey occupied, whether directly or through its proxy forces such as Al-Qaeda, Ahrar al-Sham, and all these Salafist, Ikhwani militant groups in Idlib, or the Syrian army has to show some military strength so that Turkey complies with the agreements that they have signed on?
Actually, in my opinion, there is two ways. One way, either that Erdogan has to solve this and erase and eliminate or move all of these radical Islamic terrorist groups and Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, all of them from that area, either kill them or ship them to another country under an agreement between President Putin and Erdogan, and of course Syria and Iran, or it's going to be a military operation from one side, but the Turkish, they will not support them, because they are a timing bomb on the Turkish community and the Turkish society. having that amount, a huge number of terrorists in that area, and that with that mentality, that is a big threat for the national security of Turkey. And especially as we've seen the numbers of the Turkish election, Erdogan does not have that massive support anymore. The country is split. And if anything happens, because of those radical Islamic terrorist group inside of Turkey, we might be seeing a civil war inside of Turkish society, and the Turkish people are tired from all of those Muslim Brotherhood MB radical Islamic. We all know Turkey is a secular country in origin, but now they wanna. And the last 10 years, Erdogan tried to support and pump up the Muslim Brotherhood, and that is why the secular are trying to push back that mentality. So if anything happens in Turkey because of this ideology, so it's going to backfire on Erdogan. So he has to eliminate them, either by shipping them to a third country, like how he did one time, how he did in Libya, or how he did in Azerbaijan, or he has to ship them to somewhere, or, as we said, a military operation.
Actually, if Erdogan ships them to Afghanistan, they would feel very much welcomed and home with the Talibans there, and they would just live in Tora Bora areas, spreading their democratic values there and showing the world how tolerant they are by forcing women to stay home and not letting them to study and decapitating anyone who disagrees with them regardless of their sect. But from the Turkish side, I'm very surprised because it's not like I'm so surprised, but when in politics, when you have mutual interest with your opponent, you can deal with your even opponent on this particular issue. And in Syria, Turkey and Syria, they have a mutual interest, and that is to push the Kurdish militias at least 30 kilometers away from the borders with Turkey. And Turkey can deal with Syria on this case in exchange for cooperation on the Idlib file, right? But Erdogan, up until this moment, apparently he wants to get the maximum from every file that is related in Syria, whether it's internally or on the external level. Don't you think?
That is so true.
That's very unfortunate, to be honest with you. And one of the reasons, in my opinion, now that we have a bad economic situation is because of foreign occupation of Syria's natural resources and cutting different cities from each other. And that increases also the potential or the number of the refugees. And now, during the acts of hostilities, when the war was on its peak, we understand that millions of people escaped because of the war. But now, since there is no active acts of hostilities, why the people are leaving the country? And we have seen now 750 refugees. They were trying to escape between Turkey to Greece, and their ship sank. Unfortunately, only 150 people, I think, survived. There were so many of them were Syrians. They drowned. And you, in your recent article, you argued that U.S. sanctions are drowning Syrians. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes, of course, because the Syrian people and the Syrian youth, it is true. They want to leave the country. They want to find a better life. They are tired. They open their eyes to the world on war that they never chose. It was forced on Syria and the Syrian people. They opened their eyes to the world with no electricity, with radical Islamic terrorist group doing either car bombs or tunnel bombs, like how they did in Aleppo and Damascus. So they opened to their eyes to the world. Besides, like the young people in any other country in the world, they dream about finishing high school, going to college, finding a job, making a family. The Syrian people, the Syrian young men, they cannot think about that because they lived through a war. It is true. Yes, a huge number of them have left, and a huge number want to leave because it is unlivable because of the sanctions. The United States are stealing all of the oil and gas and resources in the east of Syria. There is sanctions on Syria at the same time. So they are making life unlivable in Syria, and that is their role. That is what the Americans want. They want either the Syrians either to leave, to to show to the Western media and to the Western community, look, the Syrians, they don't want to live in Syria because because they cannot live under this, in their words, regime, or they want the people to uprise, and that we all know that's not going to happen. They're trying and they're pumping in their media, in all of their media outlets, and in their sanctions, politically, economically, media. They are working on that, but in reality, and this was not the only ship. A few months back, also a ship was drowned, and the majority of them were people from my own city, Latakia. They were burying one after another. In like, it took them 1 month, and they kept burying and getting bodies every day. So, and also on top of all of that, the Americans did not even help, not even 1%, in the earthquake that happened, that hit Syria, while already there is no medication, not enough medication. Everyone knows that because of the sanctions. They couldn't import anything. We cannot import anything. There is no electricity to run the hospitals, and we had a massive earthquake with thousands of families lost their house, thousands who died, and the Americans did not help. And the American foreign policy did not change towards Syria. They did not put their politics on the side and put a humanitarian issue. So with all of this situation, the Syrian young men, young girls, they want to leave because it's they want to find a better life, and that is what everyone wants, a better life. Everyone in this world.
Stephen, the American administration and, in my opinion, European governments know quite well that the sanctions are harming the Syrian people and driving them to desperation. They know this is what, when they say it's targeted sanctions, you know what the targeted means. The target are the Syrian people, right? But they are journalists. And they are Western journalists, I would say. And they're on Twitter when this horrible incident happened, which every mother in Syria is now crying because of it. They pointed their finger and they said, there is only one reason why these people tried to escape Syria, and that is the Assad dictatorship. They're running from the tyranny of Assad. We know that there are multiple reasons why the people are escaping Syria. The most important of it is economic, but why do you think they try to minimize these reasons and just point their finger and say it's the Assad regime, they're running, escaping from the Assad regime? Why do you think this obsession from these Western journalists that they want to simplify this very big crisis in Syria? Because if there was a war right now, I would argue that, yeah, probably 50% of them were anti-Assad, so they tried to escape. But right now, when there is no acts of hostilities, and this is mostly about economic reasons, why do you think this obsession only about this one person, and that is Assad?
This is not anything new. If we all remember and we all read history back, since 1970, since President Hafez Assad took power, Syria, 73, and they are trying to demonize this government, demonize President Hafez. They tried to demonize President Hafez. Then President Assad came in. They tried to demonize him and threaten him in 2003 because he refused to participate in the war on Iraq. In 2005, when they killed Rafiq Hariri, not the Syrians, and they tried to accuse the Syrian government, also they tried to demonize him. After the 2006 war in Palestine, 2006 in Lebanon, South Lebanon, 2007 war in Gaza. Then it was between 2008 and 2010 when they stopped the demonizing this president. They tried to do pressure on him, political pressure, to go under their, we all know, the economical projects, and to take him to the West, not to the East. They also failed. That's when, in 2011, when they announced the war on him and supported and funded all of this 11 years of war. So, and that is what the Americans are famous for, and the Western countries are famous for. They're doing this with President Putin in Russia. They're using this of North Korea, Kim Jong, They're doing this with Iran, with Syria, with any country in the world that says no to the United States, and they don't go by the United States orders. They have all of their media emperors and outlets attacking them and demonizing them. And this is, they don't care if it's a humanitarian issue, if people are dead, children are dead, people are crying. They don't care. The American White House and the American foreign policy and the EU behind it, because the EU, they work for the American White House and the American State Department. That is their agenda. That is what they do, and they have no heart, as I told you. So it's just a political weapon that they use.
Actually, the demonization is now is going further, and today, American Chief Lieutenant General Alexis Grinkovich from AFCENT is the U.S. Air Force Central. He says in a press conference that Russia and Syria are not doing enough to prevent ISIS from reforming under their noses. The U.S. is now directly accusing Syria and Russia of not doing enough to prevent the emergence of ISIS.
I would like to ask, what is the ISIS cells doing next to the Al-Tanf American military base, and what they are doing by protection, and why no one can attack them and bomb them? Because they are being protected by the United States. ISIS are being protected by the American military base in the east of Syria, and every few days they come out. Either they attack a civilian bus going from Homs or from Hama to the east of Syria, or from Damascus to the east of Syria, or they attack a military bus or a civilian or a normal cars or villages. So these ISIS cells, they are in the zone of the American military base in Al-Tanf in the east of Syria. Why did the Americans do anything? That's number one. Number two, when ISIS was growing and taking land, and then the Syrian government legally asked the Syrian government to the Russian government to help and aid the Russian military to Syria, we've seen that is when we saw the ISIS be weaker and starting ISIS to demolish, because the Russian Air Force started using the new techniques that the Syrian Air Force did not have, and start bombing the oil wells and the oil that was being sent from ISIS in the east of Syria to south of Turkey, who Bilal Erdogan, he was doing business with. This is all
the son of Erdogan.
The son of Erdogan. The Americans did not see that with all of their secret service, all of their satellites, all of their spies all around the world. They did not see that. But the Russians, they did see it. They did see the military bases of ISIS, and the Russians did see the training camps, but the Americans couldn't see it. That will show you that the Americans, from day one, they are using ISIS for agenda, just like how they used Al Qaeda before. They are using ISIS to cause chaos in this. They are agents for the United States, ISIS, because or that's the only reason. That's the only explanation. Or why won't they eliminate them?
Actually, it's not a coincidence that in every spot in the world, when the United States wants to fight its opponents, then this ISIS Al-Qaeda terrorists just appear from Afghanistan to Chechnya to Yugoslavia to Syria to Libya. Everywhere they want to fight their opponents, all of a sudden these Al-Qaeda terrorists appear. Stephen, last question in 1 minute, if you want to summarize, tell us what's the real mission of the U.S. occupation forces if they are not there to fight ISIS?
The thing is that the Americans, in the east of Syria, they don't want the oil or gas, because the amount of oil and gas in the east of Syria, it's not business. It's not that much. It's enough for Syria that we don't need anyone and we don't need to import anything. But the Americans, they want to keep this area in unrest, and they don't want the Syria and its allies, especially Russia and Iran, to come out victorious in this war, because that will look bad in their community and the West community. They want to keep this area. Now they're concentrating on the Southeast Asia, but they have this. They have their eye on the Middle East. Like, let's keep the Middle East in tension, in chaos. We have a military base in the east of Syria. We have a few number of ISIS in the region, so they will cause chaos and keep them busy. We can fight our war in supporting Ukraine against Russia and supporting Taiwan against China. That is their number one role. They're not fighting terrorism. They are not helping the Syrian people. They are making us suffer more and more.
Stephen, thank you very much for being my guest. I really appreciate your insights. Guys, the Twitter and the Facebook links of Stephen are in the description below, including his last article, that how the US is drowning Syrians, and he speaks about the impact of the sanctions and why the people are running away from Syria. Unfortunately, lots of Syrians want to leave the country because of this devastating economic situation there. And if you like this video, please share it with your friends. And also, if you want to support my independent work, become a patron. Link in the description below, and see you next time.